Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. So thank you everybody for joining. We're so grateful for your time today. And happy Friday, Junior, by the way, or Junior Friday, whichever you prefer. Today, you may be here to learn how generative AI can transform your testing processes and quality engineering processes. You may be curious about how AI can make your work easier, or you may be struggling with creating detailed test cases and managing endless amounts of test data. Whatever the reason, you are in the right place and you are in good hands. I'm happy to introduce you to our main speaker, Meher. Meher leads our quality engineering team with deep expertise in generative AI and testing. He comes with rich technical background in generative AI, LLMs, NLP, and many more, alongside expertise in testing mobile applications, web services, test automation, mainframes, databases, performance, site reliability, and security. So very, very smart and intelligent with a whole host of experience today. Supporting him are Robert, our account executive, with over 20 plus years in quality assurance delivery, thought leadership, and innovation. And of course, Kieran, our solution director and also offering owner for quality engineering. His 26 years of rich experience in testing is transforming quality engineering in Prolifics by building tools and accelerators for our customers' problems. Don't forget to stick around until the end for a chance to book a free discovery call with Robert to see how our solutions can benefit you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am going to hand it over to Meher and Kieran. Thank you.
So let me start with an introduction to Prolifics. We are a digital engineering company that specializes in assisting customers on their digital transformation journeys. As a value-driven organization, we prioritize delivering tangible and measurable business values to our customers, and we do work that matters. So we have around 2,000 plus smart people working worldwide across 11 different locations. You can see the kind of quality of delivery by looking at the 97% defect removal efficiency. And our 91% repeat engagement emphasizes that the customers trust us for their critical business needs. We are comfortable working with Fortune 1000 companies or mid-sized companies alike, and we help solve the complex issues. So there are 80 plus technology accelerators. Talks about what we do and how do we emphasize on innovation.
All right. Thank you very much, Kiran. All right, a lot of interesting stuff coming up. But before we deep dive into today's content, we will be predominantly covering three topics today: AI in testing, test data management using AI, and testing AI. So these are the three main things that we'll cover today. And before we jump in, let me give you a few interesting facts of what AI is doing for the testing domain. So when we look at 2023, so the AI market has already gone to 426 million. So that means most of the tools in the testing are using AI. Let us talk about Tosca, UFT, or any other tool. It is having some or bit of flavor of artificial intelligence. And now the interesting fact is that we are not stopping there. The AI is going to capture a 2 billion market, and it can go up to 4 billion by 2023. And that's in numbers. If we are talking about percentage, that's 43.7% of growth from 2023 to 2033. That's a very big number. And why AI is getting so much of significance? Because AI can automate your test cases faster. So faster to market means more money. And then when we are talking about defects, AI is helping at the moment the testers to get a 20% efficiency in identifying more defects when compared to the more manual process. And also, it's proven that AI-enabled automation frameworks has helped the maintenance cost of automation by 50%. And we don't have to mention about few of the things like self-healing scripts, automated script generation, and stuff like that when we are talking about 50% of reduction in maintenance cost. So after knowing those interesting facts of what AI is doing in testing, let's deep dive a little more into how we are going to use AI in testing in Prolific's way. So other than that, we have many other areas where we are heavily investing in R&D when we are talking about innovation using AI in Prolifics. So few of the areas that we are bringing more emphasis is natural language processing, intelligent test scripting, self-healing test automation, dynamic test case generation, predictive analysis for defects, Turing test. I think people who are much familiar with AI, you know what a Turing test is, right? So Turing test is about scoring an AI system. So now we have a different flavor of Turing test. So when we are talking about Turing test is about human giving prompts to an AI system, and based on the feedback, we give a score to the AI system. So that's how a human is involved to see that AI is free from loops, free from hallucinations, and free from bias and fairness. But here, what we are bringing the differentiator into the market from Prolifics is that our Turing test is done by a trained model. So we have our own model that has been trained by over 1,000 to 2,000 prompts that tries to identify how smart the AI system is. We'll get there, how we are doing that and what are the advantages of that. But other than that, we are also focusing on test data management and cybersecurity and penetration testing, performance tests, site reliability, and many more areas when we are talking about AI in testing. So now let's go a little deeper into how we are using AI in testing. So predominantly, we have three main goals when we're talking about AI in testing. So our three main goals are generating user stories, generating BDD scenarios for automation using Gherkins, and we know the format, it's given, when, and then generating test cases. So generating test cases, although it might sound quite simple, but a lot of process goes into generating test cases because we make sure that our models follow the rules and follow the algorithms that are important to generate the test cases. Few of them like boundary value analysis, state transition, equivalence partition, decision table, and many more. All right, so on the right, you are seeing a high level flow of how we are going to generate the test cases, user stories, and BDD scenarios using artificial intelligence. So we have 4 swim lanes here. So what is the source to generate the test cases? So what is the main heart, which is the LLM engine that is helping us to generate test cases? What is the action we want the LLM engine to perform? And how we are storing and retrieving the information and the data. So here, if you can see in the second swim lane, which is LLM engine, so we are predominantly basing on 3 main models. So one is GPT-4V, GPT-4 Vision. Second one is GPT-4 and Prolific's trained model. So these are the 3 main engines that we use in order to meet our goals in AI in testing. So GPT-4 and GPT-4V, as you already know, has a lot of traction in the market. And also they have been trained over 1 billion parameters. Now, when we are talking about Prolific's trained model, it is very important for us as an enterprise to bring that confidence within our clients and customers. So how? So when we are talking about GPT-4 and GPT-4V, although it is very secure, but then there is a benefit of doubt that we are giving the internal information of the enterprises to a LLM engine, which is stored in a cloud. So there is always a benefit of doubt that whether the information that we are giving to these LLMs and the AI is secure or not. So of course it is secure, but then to get rid of that barrier, to get rid of that benefit of doubt, we have our own model as well, which helps us to accomplish the testing goals. And the fourth element that has been gaining a lot of traction for us is generating Selenium scripts using page source and URL. It's quite a simple concept, but yet powerful. So through this, we are achieving right from writing test cases to automation your test scripts using Selenium. Everything is end-to-end by AI. So now when we are talking about source, right? So GPT-4 Vision accepts images, which is in a JPG format, SVG, PNG, or a vector image, or anything that is an image. We are sending it to GPT-4V. And anything we are talking about documents, which contains text, right? So a text file, a doc, a PDF, Excel, CSV, you name anything that goes to GPT-4. And both of them can be fed to Prolifix trained model as well. So now why we are having this differentiation is because, as we know, the efficiency of GPT-4V is more when we are talking about images and videos. And the efficiency of GPT-4 is more when we are talking about text-oriented documents. So that's where we had to make a conscious choice of directing our inputs, wherein we get the efficient output. So here we are trying to achieve 4 activities here. So generate the user stories, generate test cases, generate BDD scenarios, and Selenium scripts. So it is end to end. And then now coming to the storage. So we give customers an option to have a cloud storage or an on-prem storage. Your data is secure wherever you're storing these user stories or test cases or Selenium scripts. It's easy to retrieve, easy to play around. And also all the while, the more you do it, the more stronger your model will get in learning how to generate the test cases and user stories. And that's how we make the model listen to you. All right. Moving on, let's talk about why we should do that, right? So yeah, test case generation sounds very fancy using AI, but it's all about numbers when we're talking about business, right? So the first, you can see there is a 70% increased efficiency, which is in the market. It is not just a random number, but it has been a proven fact in the market. There is a 70% increased in efficiency. So that means now you don't have to worry about missed edge cases, or maybe you don't need to worry about spending more time in creating test cases and executing those test cases. Rather, you can free up your resources and you can have them work on something more important and value addition to the business. When we're talking about edge cases, so there is a 20% improved coverage because as a humans, we can't see everything. So we will give that tedious job to the AI to analyze vast set of test data and data sets so that we all know the fact, the more the test data, the more the coverage. So test data is directly proportional to the coverage. So we have the AI to do the tedious job. And obviously, who don't love time saving? So now with AI, we are saving 50% of time using automation test case generation, execution, and result publishing. So as we have seen previously, everything is end-to-end AI driven in our platform. So writing test cases using screenshots or URLs, or maybe page source, your HTML code, writing test cases to automating and executing and publishing the results. Everything is end-to-end driven by AI. And then not just quantified benefits. We also have other benefits of like reduced errors. So it's common for us to miss something. So we don't let AI do that mistake. So we eliminate the mistakes because of the repetitive tasks using AI. And also not to mention, AI doesn't have a day where it falls sick, right? So we have consistent results when we're talking about AI, whether it's raining or a shining sunny day, the results are consistent when we're talking about AI. And focused complexities like we have seen. So we can give these tedious, boring tasks to AI, and we can have our bright resources to work on something that is more valuable. So they can maybe try to analyze a complex scenarios, or maybe put their effort in some situation where they require human judgment. So these are these are few of many advantages that we get using our platform of test case generation using AI. All right. So now moving on, the next topic, we are talking about test data management using AI. So now what's going to happen? A poll will be popping up for you guys. Please take a moment to think about what are the challenges that you see or that are relevant for you in your day-to-day job when it comes to problems with test data. And not to mention, because I mean, most of us know what the World Quality Report means. So the World Quality Report has clearly mentioned that test data management is a challenge that is largely ignored by the organizations.
So it's a pretty close result. Right now, the top two are obsolete data and incompleteness, both tied for the top challenges, followed by inaccuracy. 3 people voted at that. Limited access, 11% of respondents, and then other is 5%. So obsolete data and incompleteness are kind of the top two we're looking at right now.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, all right. Let's count to 5 and then we'll close the poll and get on to how we as Prolifics are helping enterprises solve their test data challenges or in data challenges. Okay, all right. Let's jump on to how we are solving this challenge with test data. So there are a lot of test data challenges, but then we have carefully categorized into 4 different categories. So the first one is data quality, second one, reusability and maintenance, and then security and compliance, and then data availability and accessibility. All right. So what falls under data quality? So when we're talking about data quality, inaccuracy, incompleteness, and irrelevance, right? So I can think of these 3 on top of my mind. So inaccuracy, as in you execute a test case, and definitely the test case fails because your actual output, actual response, and the expected response is quite different. And that is a very big chance that because of your inaccurate test data. And then incompleteness, that may be useful for you in testing your negative scenarios, but not all the time, because that gives you false positives. So incompleteness is also a big challenge when it comes to data quality. And then irrelevance. Let's say, for example, you are testing an order management system. You are giving an order number that is no longer there in your database. Or maybe you are giving an order number which is actually a written order number in your database, right? So irrelevance. So there are many other things with respect to data quality, but then we have to somewhere have a high level categorization. So the second category we are looking at is reusability and maintenance. So why we have a challenge in reusability maintenance is because after a period of time, your test data becomes obsolete. It's no more valid. You can't do anything about it. And it's just a garbage that's sitting in your database and it's not being used. And the downside is that it is bringing down the performance of your databases, right? So we need to get rid of that database. But then how do you determine how you want to get rid of that obsolete database from the actual valid data, right? So that's a lot of manual effort. And yeah, we will get there. How we want to address that using AI. And then security and compliance. When we are talking about security and compliance, it's more valid when we are talking about user data, healthcare information, when we're talking about banking. All these are very good examples for security and compliance. So whatever the data that we are having will have to be compliant with the local governments or local regulations. And then they have to follow certain security protocols like SOC 2 when it comes to the enterprise security, or maybe HIPAA compliance when we're talking about healthcare, or PII compliance when we're talking about personal data, right? So that's also an important factor because you don't want to attract any penalties or legal issues because of your security and compliance. So the last category we are talking about is data availability and accessibility. right? So you have this huge distributed database system where you're finishing up execution of your test case requires data to be pulled from 15 different database instances. How tedious does that sound, right? So we have to address that because most of the test data availability and accessibility issues are because of limited access to the database or data dependency, right? So these are the everyday problems that we hear, and there are many more. But then, in the interest of time, let's limit the number of problems that we are going to talk about using test data management because we more want to talk about the solution. All right, so here comes the solution for us. So this is how we address the test data problems in Prolifix. So this is our test data platform using AI. So now when we start here on the right top at test data generation, so there are two important ways how we generate the test data, right? So either you have an existing test data which is not big enough, or you don't have test data at all. So let's take a look at the first way. So you have a test data, but that test data is not enough for you to confidently say your application is working fine. So now what we are going to do is we are feeding the test data to our AI platform. So where our AI platform will be looking at patterns, similarities, and once it finds patterns and similarities, it does tagging and categorization. So this sounds simple, but a lot of computing capacity is required to do that. And we are well equipped to have that computing done. So now this data is pushed to the data generation engine. So what data generation engine is going to do is that it's going to generate 10,000, 100,000 or 1,000,000 records of database based on the patterns and similarities that has been identified by the sample data that you have provided of about 100 to 150 rows. That's really huge. And it is effective. And how we are proving that the generated test data, which is volumized, the synthetic data generation, is correct using this validator, which is again Prolifix's strength for us here. We'll come to the validator in some time. Let's go back again to the first step. Let's assume you don't have a sample test data, but you have a requirements document or you have an analyst who knows how the test data should be. So now what we are doing is we are feeding that information to the rule book. So now what this rule book does is that it will understand how each and every record, each and every column should be in your database. For example, it's a social security number, right? So it's how many sets of social security numbers, what is the number pattern? If you're talking about credit card data, so how a Visa card number looks like, how your MasterCard number looks like, how your Discover card looks like. So those are the rules that we give to the rule book. And the rulebook is so intelligent that, let's say, for example, if we are generating test data of user data, right? So user data essentially has first name, last name, city, phone number, email, and all. So now our engine is intelligent enough to generate Norwegian names, to generate Dutch names, or to generate Russian names. That gives more relevance for multinational companies to test the applications with the test data. So now again, from the rule book, we are pushing it to the data generation engine. Now this is where the whole magic happens. The data generation engine will take care of everything that rule book mentions it, right? Rule book says, hey, this is how the data should look like. And test data generation engine says, you don't worry, I'll take care of that. And now when it comes to the validator, so now validator, what it does is it will validate the test data, whether it is as expected, and then it will remove the duplicates, because this is a biggest challenge when we are talking about test data generation. So the volumizing of test data, there is a big room for having duplicates. So now our validator removes duplicates. And to surprise you guys, our duplicate records generation of duplicate records is less than 1%, because we use advanced algorithms like Gaussian-Kupla algorithm and other intelligent algorithms in order to generate the test data. So imagine, like, you have a 10,000 records of test data and less than 1% is duplicates, right? So that's really a big thing. And now we are removing the duplicates and then sending it to a scoring system. So now scoring system again validates whether your test data is contextually correct. It's not just random numbers or random alphanumeric values. So once the scoring system will give you a score on certain parameters that we feed it internally, if it is above 80, then, of course, whatever the database source that you want to have, SQL, MongoDB, or anything else you talk about, so the engine will load onto the database. Now, what happens? Your score is not above 80, it's below 80. So then what it does is, and when I have mentioned it's AI, it also does continuous learning. So which means that it again goes back to the rule book or again goes back to the sample test data, makes changes, amend those changes, and then again send it back to the data engine and then validator and then to the scoring system. So maybe it takes some time to go for 2 cycles or 3 cycles, but then that synthetic test data, volumized test data is a guaranteed thing for you using our test data platform using AI. Right? All right. So now the last topic of our webinar is testing GenAI. Right. So everybody is talking about GenAI and it's buzzing in the market and all, but it's very important for us to understand what can go wrong with GenAI, because we have seen a lot of AI bots that were shut down because they were just going out of control. So what can happen? Right. So when GenAI is built, it's all fancy because there are certain rules that it follows to work. But then GenAI always keeps learning. So now over a period of time on the x-axis, and what are the issues that we can see on the y-axis? So over a period of time, we can see an unpredictable behavior of GenAI, which really happened. So we can see a difference in the bias and fairness. We can find out the security vulnerabilities. We can have a problem with transparency, and we can see a real world impact. So when I'm talking about real world impact, let's say, for example, your AI is assessing the eligibility of a candidate's loan application, and somehow it feels like, okay, we give you loan, your loan is approved, right? But in real, he is not really in a state to pay back to the bank. Right, so that's one of the instances that we are talking about real world impact. So many things can go wrong, because when we are talking about bias and fairness, when we are talking about explainability, when we are talking about data dependency, so things can go wrong. So what we need by testing GenAI is that we need improved reliability, right? So we really have to be in a situation where we can put kids on a self-driving car, put a destination, and without a driver, we can let them go to the destination, right? Do we really want to go there? All right. So, and then enhanced fairness. So enhanced fairness, as in when we're talking about fairness, we don't want discriminatory or unfair outcomes. So the bias-free output that we get from GenAI systems, and then greater transparency. So transparency, when I'm talking about transparency, you need to have clear insights on how GenAI is going to make a decision on your behalf, right? So that's the transparency we are talking about. And we want to reduce the risks when we're talking about healthcare, when we're talking about ADAS, assisted driving. So the reduced risk is something that we wanted to look at. And how we are doing it? Yeah. So our framework is inspired by Microsoft's PIRIT framework, and PIRIT stands for Python Risk Identification Tool. So on the left, you can see what are the interfaces you're using and we are using, and then what's against what we are implementing, right? So our target is either it's a local model or a remote API or a web application. And the data sets, we give static prompts and also dynamic prompts. So we'll come to static prompts and dynamic prompts because they play a very important role in testing your GenAI platforms. And now coming to the scoring engine. So when I have mentioned about the Turing test, so this is where our models come into picture. So our models will try to give prompts, and based on the feedback that we get from GenAI systems, we do the evaluation and we give a scoring in order to understand how good your GenAI application is. So that is also one of the attack strategies. So the attack strategies, we'll talk in the next slide how we are going to attack it. And then storage. So every prompt and every feedback need to be stored so that we have to retrieve it, we have to review it, and we have to make the model learn, right? So especially when it comes to conversations, when it comes to analysis, when it comes to forecasting, right? So it's very important. So now we are inspired from this framework, and this is what we have built. So this is Prolifix's framework of testing GenAI. So essentially, we have 4 elements here. So our trained model, the communication engine, the target GenAI platform, and then the scoring engine. So these are the 4 big components that work together to make sure that your GenAI systems are reliable, right? So now there are 2 ways to test the GenAI system. So one is a single prompt. That means you give a prompt, it gives a response. So which is also called feedback. So it gives a response. So that is one way to test the GenAI systems. And the second way is that contextual prompt. So that means a question and an answer, and a question irrelevant to the answer. So that's the contextual response. So the contextual response keep going on for iterations. A single response is one time. You give one prompt and you get one response. So now what every time happens is that whenever there is a prompt, whenever there is a response, everything is being fed to the scoring engine, because scoring engine is essentially the engine that will help to assess how reliable your GenAI system is. It sounds pretty simple, but then a lot of computation, a lot of algorithms will be working under the hood in order to give you a score, right? So this will help us to achieve improved reliability. So when we are talking about improved reliability, it's a reduced risk of unexpected behavior. What does that mean, reduced risk of unexpected behavior? So reduced risk of unexpected behavior means the AI will work as it is intended to, right? So it plays by the rules of the customers and clients. It doesn't go out, it doesn't go rogue. It just do what we want it to do, right? And then enhanced fairness. So enhanced fairness as in we have GenAI and we have to ethically use it. So that's how we will mitigate the bias and promote the ethical usage of AI. And then we also achieved increased security, right? So this is smart enough to address the vulnerabilities when it identified, which means we use our platform to protect from attacks, the cyber attacks, in fact. And then greater transparency. So transparency maybe synonymously goes with trust. So that means how the generative AI is arriving to a decision is something that we get as an insights from our platform, so that we know how the AI is making decisions. So providing insights is a differentiator here for Prolifix. And last, we have reduced the risks. Reduce the risks, as we have talked, and autonomous driving cars, or maybe when we are talking about a credit assessment for a loan application, or maybe an analysis of a scan to identify the tumors in healthcare. So anywhere AI can't go wrong, because if AI goes wrong, then many things go wrong. So that's why using our platform, we reduce the risks of potential real-world consequences. All right, great. So far, we have heard a lot of interesting stuff. Now, I'm gonna leave the stage for questions, and over to you, Kippy.
Great, thank you. That was super informative, very helpful. We do have a Q&A section where you can put in any questions for Meher. We also have Robert and Kieran on here too, so they're happy to help answer any questions that you have. So yeah, put them in the Q&A section or in the chat, and we'd be happy to answer them for you. Now's your chance to get into the nitty-gritty.
So we have seen 3 different things in today's webinar. We have seen how AI is used in testing, how we can test AI, and then how we are solving the test data problems, which means test data management using AI. And definitely you should have the curiosity of how they look like in action. So if you're really interested to see how they work in action, then Robert is your guy.
Hey,
We do have
Meher, we have a question from Draghi, and he's asking, are there more details about generating Selenium scripts through the use of AI? Can you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yes, yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. So now Selenium, generating Selenium scripts, yes. So there are essentially 2 ways that we are currently using in our platform to generate Selenium scripts. So the first way is about feeding the URL of the application. So that means we have to keep in mind that that's a public accessible URL. So now when we are giving that URL, our platform is generating Selenium test cases based on the prompt, based on the query and example that we are feeding into the AI platform. But now the challenge is that many of our test applications are in internal environments or the lower environments in production, which are not publicly accessible. So now as an alternative for that, what we are doing is that we are giving HTML page source to our AI platform. So now the AI platform will try to analyze the HTML page source. It identifies each and every element based on the identifiers like class, ID. It tries to fill in the XPath. It tries to get the CSS selectors and everything. So based on that, it gives us the test scripts for the Selenium automation. Now you must be getting a question, how do we do when it comes to end-to-end flows? That means if it is a static page, yes, it's an easy peasy thing. But when you have the flow coming from 2 different screens or maybe more than 1 screen, how we are going to do that? Yes, I have an answer for you that. So what we are doing is that we are putting the page source in a form of a text file. So now we are giving the relevance of the text file and we are making that mapping in JSON file so that we feed multiple text files saying that, hey, this is screen 1, screen 2, screen 3. So you find the relevance between the fields that you're finding there. And this is my example. This is my query. Go ahead and give the Selenium scripts. So that's how it's very interesting to see how this platform is generating the Selenium test scripts. Right. So that's how we are doing. Thank you.
Hey, Ramesh, I know you asked if there were any recordings, and I just responded back to you. Please feel free to reach out to me at the email address right here, and I will be more than glad to get those recordings out to you. If there aren't any more questions, I'll wrap it up for us overall. I wanted to thank Meher for his incredible work and all the information that he gave to us. I think it's a lot of great information just to give you just a surface level, because we all know how expansive generative AI and AI is right now. And so being able to get to a point where we drop it down to a very specific topic like this, I think Meher did a great job of being able to actually get to that level of penetration in terms of just the details. So thanks to you, Meher. I'd also like to thank Kirsten, KP, and Erica, our marketing folks, who did a tremendous job in putting this one together for us in the webinar. And I'd love to let you guys know that we are doing a next session on performance engineering in retail. That will be presented on 6/27, same time. And Kiran will be leading that discussion, really getting into the nitty-gritty of what performance engineering is, how it can be utilized to really help with retail. You know, one of the most important stories that I have that's local to me about performance engineering was probably about 10 years ago. Target.com was actually rebranding their entire website, and their set launch date was Black Friday. You know, not the greatest time, I think, that you want to do a new launch, but they actually did do a launch on Black Friday for their new website. And I happen to have some personal insights into it. They decided not to do the level of performance testing that was recommended to them because they didn't want to spend the money. And I think if you know the news, you know that Target.com had an outage for roughly 4 hours during peak holiday shopping on Black Friday. And the estimates were anywhere between $3 to $5 million per hour was what was lost in that particular time period. So we're talking about upwards of $20 million being lost because they didn't want to pay for roughly about $100,000 worth of performance engineering. So you can make decisions based on risks and mitigation, but in the end, are you really truly prepared? So I think that's something that's going to be really relevant and germane for the topic for a lot of folks. So we'd love to see you then. And thanks again for coming out, and hopefully you had a great time. If you are interested in having a quick session or talking to Maher further, please do reach out to me, and I will be more than glad to set that session up for you with Maher. And just so you guys all know, there is no charge for a discovery session for us. So we would love to meet with you guys, kind of go through any questions that you have personally or within specific context for your organization. I know there are a lot of people that don't want to ask those types of questions right now in a public forum, but you know, feel free to reach out to me and we will get that scheduled for you. Thank you so much again. Appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.